For all its beauty and splendor, the ocean can be a cruel teacher. Diving, for all its appeal, is a perilous endeavor fraught with dangers that can quickly turn a dream into a nightmare. The serene underwater world masks the ever-present threats of decompression sickness, equipment failure, and unpredictable marine life. But perhaps the most harrowing danger of all is the stark, gut-wrenching reality of being left behind by a support boat. Let's venture back to the unforgiving ocean where survival is earned, not given. This is Outdoor Disasters. Komodo National Park in Indonesia is a realm where awe-inspiring beauty meets unrelenting danger. Established in 1980 and declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1991, this park encompasses over 1,000 square miles or 1,700 square kilometers of land and sea, spanning the islands of Komodo, Rinca, and Padar, along with numerous smaller islets. It is a haven for biodiversity, renowned for its stunning landscapes and vibrant marine life. The park's beauty is nothing short of mesmerizing. Pristine beaches with soft white sands give way to emerald waters teeming with coral reefs, where a kaleidoscope of marine species flourish. The dramatic hills and rugged terrains offer panoramic views that captivate the heart and soul. It's a paradise for divers and nature enthusiasts, where each dive reveals a new wonder. Yet this paradise is not without its perils. Komodo National Park is home to the formidable Komodo dragon, the largest and most dangerous lizard on the planet. These ancient predators, with their powerful limbs and toxic bites, can bring down prey many times their size, including humans. A single encounter can be fatal, a stark reminder of the raw, untamed power that resides in this breathtaking locale. The seas, while visually enchanting, are treacherous. Strong currents and sudden shifts in tides can transform a serene dive into a struggle for survival. The remoteness of the islands means that in the event of an emergency, help is not immediately available. The sun-scorched land and the unforgiving ocean form a lethal combination for those unprepared for the park's challenges. Komodo National Park demands respect and vigilance. Its allure is undeniable, drawing adventurers worldwide to witness its splendor. However, the same elements that make it beautiful also harbor significant risks. This is a place where nature's grandeur is matched by its ferocity, a reminder that true beauty often comes with inherent dangers. Here, every step and every dive should be taken with reverence for the delicate balance between life and death in this magnificent corner of the world. For James Manning and Charlotte Allin, their Komodo National Park experience would be a nightmare. Jim Manning, 30, and Charlotte Allin, 25 at the time, live a carefree lifestyle, something way different than what Jim is used to as a commander in the British Armed Forces. He joined the military at 18, unsure of what else to do with his life. Basic training revealed his fitness, leading instructors to recommend the Commando Course, an elite forces unit. Jim accepted the challenge and served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. During periods of leave, he backpacked around Southeast Asia, where he met Charlotte. She was a free spirit, passionate about traveling the world, and unprepared to settle down. Despite his military background, Jim was laid back and shared her love for diving and backpacking. Their connection was natural and effortless. In 2006, after a decade of military service, Jim received his discharge papers. He and Charlotte packed their bags and flew to Thailand, where they have worked as scuba diving instructors. They found a dive school in Koh Phi Phi, Thailand, which became their base. They worked, dived, traveled, and repeated the cycle, exploring dive sites in the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, New Zealand, and Australia. Wanting to explore more of what Southeast Asia has to offer, and not ready to return to the UK, the couple connected with another Briton, Kath Mitchinson, who runs the Dive Seekers Company on the island of Flores in Indonesia, with the goal of exploring Komodo National Park, a group of islands known for their incredible wildlife, including the world's largest and most dangerous lizard, the Komodo dragon. Although they are endangered and found only on Komodo and Rinca Islands, Jim and Charlotte are primarily interested in what lies beneath the water. They embarked on a 3-day adventure exploring the stunning coral reefs. In June 2008, Jim Manning and Charlotte Allin signed up for a week-long diving expedition along the park's tropical reefs. The Flores Sea offers some of the most spectacular dive sites in the world. Seeing fish in their natural environment and experiencing the peacefulness of diving is something the couple lives for. On this occasion, they are tourists, not instructors, making the most of their freedom from responsibility. The first 2 days of diving went well. Then, on Thursday morning, June 5th, 2008, the couple set out with Kath Mitchinson, Laurent Pinel, a Frenchman diver, and Swedish diver Helena Neradiren. They are part of an experienced dive group, and they are going drift diving. This involves seeking out the strongest currents and using them to travel underwater across the coral reefs. Predicting where they will surface is challenging, and the support boat can only estimate and hope they haven't drifted too far off course. It's 4 p.m. when the group surfaces as planned, emerging a short distance from the shoreline of a small island. Jim and Charlotte paddle over to Kath, along with Laurent and Helena. They congregate, bobbing in the water, and peer around for the dive boat. It's less than 100 feet away, but is heading off on a loop around the island, presumably checking on the other group. They aren't concerned, as it's quite normal to wait a while after surfacing. They take precautions to remain visible, inflating a bright orange surface marker buoy that stands 6 feet out of the water. After 10 minutes, the current has pulled them a fair distance from the island. When they see the boat return, they shout and blow their whistles, but the boat doesn't seem to notice them. Instead, it heads off on another lap of the island. Another 10 minutes pass, then another, and they're drifting far away. Jim begins to feel uneasy. The dive boat has circled the island where they surfaced and hasn't seen them. They must have assumed the group was still underwater. The minutes tick by, and the boat still hasn't spotted them. It's around 5 p.m., and the divers are shocked into silent horror as a puff of smoke rises from the vessel's exhaust, speeding away. Jim realizes the boat is heading back to Flores, which is about a 2.5-hour ride away. The captain is likely departing due to the lateness of the hour and the need to conserve fuel. This provides little comfort to those left behind. Jim, Charlotte, and the others have been abandoned as the dive boat vanishes over the horizon. Jim looks towards the sun and realizes it's close to sunset, and the situation is getting dire. They begin to panic as they drift apart in different directions. Even Kath, the instructor, struggles to focus. Leaning on his military training, Jim remains calm. He checks on Charlotte, who is tearful and short of breath. She experiences a panic attack, but Jim encourages her to stay focused, emphasizing the need to conserve energy and swim toward land. Rejoining the group, they find the other three in similar states of distress. Kath is overcome with guilt, Laurent is angry and blames the dive center, and Helena is mute with shock. Jim takes charge, using carabiners to clip everyone together to prevent further separation. He outlines a plan. Rather than waiting for rescue, they need to swim to one of the tiny islands and rocky outcrops in the area. Caught in powerful currents, reaching dry land is no easy task. Each time they approach an island, they are swept past it. This happens repeatedly over the next few hours. By 7 p.m., the sun is set. The divers tread water together, kept afloat by their buoyancy vests, but constant effort is required to keep their heads above water. We see lights of fishing boats, but our shouts and whistles fail to attract attention. We are all becoming weak. Weakness is going to be our main problem. Will we have the strength to make it through the night? I am wondering that myself, and I suspect the others, are thinking the same, Charlotte said. Suddenly, Charlotte spots something in the water. A large piece of driftwood. Initially mistaking it for a shark, they soon realize it is a log. We have an incredible stroke of luck. A dead tree trunk, about 6 feet long, drifts by. We grab it and use it as a buoy to cling onto. What is frightening me is the night. I don't want to be out there in the dark, but we all know no one will be able to find us, and we just have to hang on to that log. I hook my arm through the back of Jim's wetsuit gear, and my other arm is around the log, Charlotte recalls. As the night deepens, another problem arises. After 6 hours in the water, the castaways are freezing cold at 27 degrees Celsius water. Their body temperatures are significantly lower, leading to shivering and feeling sick. Jim knows they need to focus on surviving the night. He encourages the group to stay calm and keep their spirits up despite the fear and exhaustion. They face the unknown, drifting in the open ocean with the threat of drowning, exposure, and potential shark encounters looming. Jim glances at his watch. It's 10 p.m., and they are all exhausted and badly dehydrated. They drift past what must be Komodo Island, the last major landmass before hitting the open ocean. The current has weakened, though it won't be long before it returns. Then Jim spots it, a dark silhouette, a lumpy mass rising from the water. Another island. It's hard to tell how far away it is, but it could be their last chance. We were all absolutely knackered and really cold. I remember saying, well, this is it. The tide's gone slack, so we can swim. You can actually make an effort and move in a direction now. So we decided to go for it and try to reach the island, Jim recalls. The 5 divers kicked their fins, pushing the log toward land. As they inch closer, large rocks and steep cliff faces take shape along the shore. They spot a possible landing site. We found a patch that was lighter than the other areas, and we thought it could be a beach or at least somewhere we could land. We decided that Kath and I would break away from the log. Nobody wanted us to, but we knew we had a limited window before the currents returned, so we made a break for it, Jim said. Jim lets go of the driftwood and plunges headlong through the water. As he thrashes towards land, the waves buffet him. His body rolls, arms flailing, and he feels jagged rocks cutting into his skin. Finally, his feet meet solid ground. He staggers upright and calls out to the others, urging them to follow. Moments later, his 4 fellow castaways are also washed ashore. They've made it. Jim and Charlotte embrace, giddy with joy. If it were champagne, I'd have been drinking champagne. We'd spent 11 hours in the ocean not knowing if we'd ever see land again or if we'd be eaten by sharks. Now we were on solid ground. I was smiling and celebrating, thinking we would survive this, Manning remarked. Dive instructor Kath believes they've washed up on Padar Island, a remote jungle-covered outcrop, 6 square miles in size. It's the smallest of the 3 main islands comprising Komodo National Park. Though uninhabited, Padar is frequented by local fishermen. Mercifully, it is also the only island of the 3 that is free of Komodo dragons. Kath assures the group that they will find a fishing boat in the morning. For now, they need to rest. Jim and Charlotte remove their dive gear and settle down on the rocky shoreline. A few hours later, the sun rises. In the cold morning light, their surroundings are less appealing. Steep cliffs and dense jungle hem in the small cove. Around 5 a.m., after an uncomfortable, broken night's sleep on the rocks, they discussed what to do next. They were on an island in the middle of nowhere. Fishermen and dive boats might pass by, but there was no guarantee. It is decided that Jim and Kath will head inland to seek help, while the rest stay on the beach, keeping an eye out for passing ships. After saying goodbye to Charlotte and the others, the 2 set off. The terrain is challenging, with sheer jungle cliffs and steep hills. In their vests, swimming shorts, and thin rubber dive shoes, Jim and Kath pick their way through the foliage. They soon confront a series of vertical rock faces. After a while, Jim urges Kath to turn back. The route is dangerous, and while he is an experienced climber, she is struggling. Kath disagreed at first. She didn't want to leave me, but I assured her I could do it. I've done this kind of thing my entire life. Eventually, she reluctantly agreed and headed back to stay with the others, Jim stated. Kath suggests that Jim aim for a large bay on the other side of the island, where he is likely to find fishing boats. It should take about a day to get there on foot. Jim presses on, nearing the top of another climb. The hot sun beats down on his back. As he reaches for a handhold and pulls himself up, he gets a nasty surprise. A snake is just a few feet away. It looks at him and then disappears into the bush. Proceeding with caution, Jim makes noise to alert any wildlife. He knows he can't afford to get hurt. The others are relying on him, but that wouldn't be the only brush with dangers of the island. He experiences a second shock. While pushing aside a branch, he nearly disrupts a massive bee colony. If the branch had hit them, they would have gone berserk. It terrified me much more than the snake. As Jim gingerly bypasses the colony, he realizes this island is full of death traps. One small mistake and it could be over for him. I was worried about them the whole time, but I kept a positive mindset. My mission was to get help and rescue them. That was all I was thinking about, he recalled. Meanwhile, back on the beach, the 4 other castaways busy themselves at their makeshift camp. Laurent scans the horizon for boats, while Kath and Charlotte collect sticks to build a fire. Helena lies curled up on the rocks, sleeping. Nearby, 5 wetsuits are spread out, drying in the hot sun. Then, from the jungle, they hear movement. Branches snap and hanging vines twitch as a massive black lizard emerges from the undergrowth. Its long, forked tongue flicks out, tasting the air. Kath and Charlotte are the first to see it. Gloopy strands of toxic saliva hang, quivering from the Komodo dragon's colossal jaws. Besides the imminent threat this reptile poses, its appearance also confirms something. Kath was mistaken. They're not on the island of Padar, after all. Padar doesn't have Komodos. They must be on the island of Rinca instead. Terrified, they grab anything they can to defend themselves, sticks and weighted diving belts. But the dragon keeps lumbering towards them. Its large tail swishes, and its rounded snout presses to the ground in preparation for an attack. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Jim finally emerges from the jungle, completely unaware that he is on Rinca and not Padar. He stands at the top of a cliff and scans the coastline. There's no sign of the bay that Kath described. Jim is soaked in sweat and feeling lightheaded. The heat is taking its toll. I was really thirsty. The feeling of intense thirst was the hardest part. I can't tell you how bad it was. I hadn't drunk any water for 15 or 16 hours, and I was walking and climbing in heat and humidity, he recalls. From the top of the vertical cliff, it's maybe 200 or 300 feet down to the sandy cove below. With the thick jungle behind him, his only option is to climb down and continue along the coastline. Jim keeps his torso pressed close to the rock, his feet searching for footholds as he inches down the cliff. Miraculously, he reaches the bottom in one piece. He rushes to the nearest rock pool and plunges his face into it, taking a mouthful of seawater before spitting it out. It does nothing for his raging thirst. After resting momentarily, Jim wades into the sea and carefully navigates the rocks. He said, "I literally just got myself washed around the island. The only thing that scared me was being washed back out to sea, so I stayed as close to the rocks as I could. I was getting battered sometimes, but I thought a few cuts and bruises were far better than being out at sea. For the next 6 hours, I navigated my way around the island, jumping from rock to rock and using the waves and water." Back on the beach, the group prepares to defend themselves against the massive Komodo dragon. The woman froze, their eyes wide with fear. The giant lizard emerged from the jungle, its long, forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. It goes for Jim's wetsuit, which he left behind when he went scouting for help. The giant lizard dropped the wetsuit and continued to approach. They quickly gathered rocks, and they all began throwing them at the Komodo dragon. The stones bounced off its thick hide, but it seemed undeterred. It lunged again, its deadly jaws snapping at the air. Desperation fueled their efforts. Kath grabbed a long stick and poked at the dragon, trying to keep it at bay. The creature hissed and snapped, but she didn't back down. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Komodo dragon began to retreat. It snarled one last time before turning and lumbering back into the jungle, disappearing into the shadows. The women collapsed to the ground, their hearts racing and their bodies trembling with adrenaline. As they were starting to relax and unwind, a second Komodo dragon emerged from the jungle. It was the usually withdrawn Helena who sprang into action. They heard Helena screaming loudly, and when they turned to look, they saw her hitting the dragon on the head with a massive boulder, causing it to retreat into the jungle. The giant lizard had emerged from the jungle, and while Helena was asleep, it had grabbed her wetsuit hood, which was lying beside her. The dragon's massive jaws snapped shut, missing Helena by inches. They knew now the island held more dangers than just the elements and were on high alert. Together, they would have to face whatever challenges came their way, determined to survive until rescue arrived. But the group was now worried about Jim, who was traversing a jungle full of massive Komodo dragons. By sundown on Friday, Jim is utterly exhausted. He's been traversing the island for over 12 hours. But as he emerges from the water, a wave of relief washes over him. He slumps down on the sand. Ahead stretches a long crescent bay, just as Kath described it, but there are no fishing boats in sight. He guesses they must have headed back for the day. All he can do now is settle down for another night on the beach. Unbeknownst to him, this is not the bay Kath described, and no fishermen are coming in the morning. Jim is stranded on the wrong island, with over 1,000 wild Komodo dragons roaming the area. It's 5 a.m. on Saturday. Jim's eyes crack open to reveal a dawn sky streaked with pink clouds. He heaves himself upright and stares at the sea, but no boat is in sight. Staggering to his feet, he makes his way across the seaweed-slick rocks. His mission for the day is to sit there and flag down the first fisherman he sees. As the morning progresses, he occasionally spots tiny specks of boats in the distance, likely ferrying tourists around the national park. Despite his best efforts, none of them notice him. The sun rises higher in the sky, and he's growing frustrated not being able to flag down any boats. The hours crawl by, then Jim spots another boat. Unlike the others, this one isn't flitting across the horizon, it's coming toward the island. Soon he hears the drone of its motor as it rounds the headland at the other end of the bay, about a kilometer away. Jim leaps to his feet. Around midday, a speedboat came around the corner. I was waving and shouting, and I could see they were looking for people. As it got closer, people started waving at me, and I started waving at them. The boat changed direction and came toward me. I was celebrating, Jim recalls. Jim recognizes the figures on board. 2 people are near the prow, waving frantically. He squints and shades his eyes. It's Charlotte. Jim leaps into the water and swims for the boat. Clambering on board with tears in his eyes, he hugs everyone on the boat, overwhelmed with relief. It was like every good moment rolled into one. I was jumping for joy, over the moon, saved. It was a massive moment, hugging everyone and crying tears of joy. They gave me a bottle of water, and it was the best thing I've ever tasted, Jim proclaimed. The boat turns and heads for Flores. As they speed over the waves, Jim Manning learns from Charlotte that they had been on Rinca all this time, not Padar Island as they'd first thought. He discovers a massive search and rescue operation has been underway for the last 2 days. Salvation came when a passing vessel spotted the group on the beach, where the 4 castaways had laid out their orange buoyancy aids in the shape of a cross. Jim also learns about the group's close encounter with the local wildlife. Once they realized where they were, Kath was devastated. She knew there were thousands of Komodo dragons on the island. They were really worried about me in the jungle, Jim said. Jim and Charlotte return to land and reunite with the others. Kath is reunited with her husband and is overjoyed to return to her partner. The survivors spend the next few days recovering at Kath's home in Flores. Jim and Charlotte decide to return to England to spend time with their families. But it's not long before the adventurous couple returns on a plane to Thailand for the summer diving season. Life's too short for what-ifs. We went back and worked another season in Thailand teaching diving. You get back on the bike. Life's too short. Make the most of opportunities. You never know if tomorrow will be the day you die. So seize the day, Jim proclaimed. Today, Jim and Charlotte are still together, married, and have 2 children. When Jim looks back on their ordeal in Indonesia, his outlook remains upbeat. It's nothing but positive. I live my life more positively than before, and I was positive before that happened. Nothing but good things have come out of this. I have good memories and life experience to pass on to my children, hopefully giving them a positive outlook on life. The ocean, with its endless horizons and deep mysteries, can seem overwhelmingly indifferent. Its waves are powerful, its currents unpredictable, and its depths filled with unknown dangers. But remember, you are not helpless. Every breath you take, every decision you make, is a step toward survival. When stranded in the middle of the ocean, facing the vast and daunting expanse of water, it's natural to feel fear and uncertainty. Yet within this immense challenge lies the opportunity to discover your inner strength and resilience. You find yourself lost at sea while diving, and the support boat can't locate you. Remember that group visibility is higher than individual visibility. If you're with other divers, stay close together. Use your signaling devices, inflate and raise your surface marker buoy or safety sausage to increase your visibility. If you have a whistle, blow it periodically. If you have a dive light, flash it to attract attention, especially at night. Reflecting sunlight with a mirror or shiny object can help attract attention from passing boats or aircraft. Minimize movement. Treading water constantly can tire you out quickly. If you have a flotation device, use it to stay buoyant with minimal effort. Assume the HELP position, which stands for Heat Escape Lessening Posture. If you have a flotation device, cross your arms, hold your legs together, and bring your knees to your chest to conserve body heat. If you have a rain-catching device or can collect rainwater, use it to stay hydrated. Drinking seawater is out of the question. Cover your head and exposed skin to prevent sunburn and heat stroke. Be mindful of jellyfish, sharks, and other potentially dangerous marine life. Keep your distance and try not to attract attention. Use any available floating debris to create a more stable platform to rest on. This will help conserve energy and increase your visibility. Estimate your drift. Try to gauge the direction and speed of the current. This can help you predict where you might drift and possibly navigate toward safety. Staying hopeful, focused, and not panicking can significantly improve your chances of surviving an outdoor disaster. Thank you for watching. Want more outdoor disaster content? Check out these stories I believe you'll enjoy.